episode of ASTRO CLASS. So because we kind of dabbled into some of the basics over the last couple of weeks, just kind of covering some of the rulerships, some of the information about houses, how to identify your chart, how to identify where certain events are taking place in your chart, I thought we would bring it all together and actually use this full moon in Libra that we are about to have here in just a couple of hours. I thought we would use that as an example on analyzing some charts, really bringing full circle what it is that we've learned throughout the Astro classes thus far, and kind of see how we can bring it to life, so to speak. So keep in mind that there is a astro forecast for the full moon in Libra that you should definitely listen to, because it gives a very in-depth perspective on the energies at play and where it is that we should be focusing our energy and attention for these particular life lessons. There is also a moon guide that I would really recommend that you download, that you walk through the shadow realm of thoughts and feelings and really kind of explore what it is that this full moon in Libra wants you to discover. If nothing else, I would encourage you to bust out your chart, to follow along, and definitely see where some aspects are taking place in your chart and what that means for you. And even more than that, I thought this was a pretty good example to use, the full moon in Libra, because we are in Aries season. We are having the full moon in Libra, and the true nodes of the moon will be shifting into this Aries and Libran axis come July, but we will get a taste on the topics and themes that we are going to have to learn the hard way, essentially, over the next year and a half. We're going to have to identify where this Aries and Libran axis is in our own personal charts. And hopefully by moving through some of the examples here today, you'll be able to kind of pick up where in your chart these particular topics and themes are going to come to life. So, because we've already examined houses and we have an understanding about what the houses mean and the areas of life in which they impact, we are going to explore where the full moon will be taking place in all of the houses using some client charts as examples. And I think the first thing that we have to understand is that it is taking place in Libran energy. And who rules over Libran energy? Venus. And Libran energy sits across from what energy? Aries. And who rules over Aries energy? Mars. What do we get here? We get the masculine and feminine energies having an opportunity to balance themselves. Libran energy, about balance, represented by the scales. We have the masculine, feminine energies at work within every single one of us. The masculine energy is the ego self, where we are aggressive and assertive to go after what it is that we want for ourselves, our passions, our desires. It's where we're a force to be reckoned with out in the external realm. The feminine energy is kind of more fluid. We sit back, we're receptive, we want to see what flows to us instead of actually forcing ourselves out into the world. It is the emotional realm of intuition, if you will, while the masculine really embodies the physical action and the mental perspective in order to do so. So we are going to analyze some charts. If your initials are GD and you were born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, you are in Aries with a Libra rising, this could be your chart. So first, I just want to kind of bring home the fact that we have to identify two different energies here. We have to identify Aries energy. We have to identify Libran energy. These are both cardinal signs. We explored that as well. We can also identify the other two cardinal signs, which is Cancer and Capricorn, because the cardinal signs at 16 degrees is what's going to be most activated under this full moon in Libra. So I thought that this chart was interesting because, of course, we're going to have the full moon take place at a 16 degree, which lands us here in the first house of self. It's an interesting dynamic because, of course, the sun is over here in Aries energy in the 7th house. And now the 7th house is naturally where Libran energy rules over. The Aries energy naturally rules over the 1st house. So we have a little bit of a flipped chart here. And that's kind of why I wanted to use it. The 1st house is the self, the individual. What do I want? What do I need? What do I desire? The 7th house is relationships, is partnerships. What do we want? What do we need? What do we desire? Essentially speaking, the 1st house is representative of our own personal goals, while the 7th house is the goals of the partnership, of the relationship. Now at 16 degrees, we look over here and it'll land us right here, okay? Which means that this person's Venus, again, the ruler of this new moon, is going to be activated, directly opposed by the Libran energy that Venus actually rules over. So we know that this person is going to have a huge illumination on where it is that they have to kind of rearrange, reorganize, recalibrate the energy exchange in their personal relationships, because this person, where they have Libran energy ruling over the 1st house, tends to identify themselves more as a part of a partnership than they do their own individual self, which is a direct conflict for being in Aries. Aries here is here to basically shape and mold the individual identity. And so between the 1st and the 7th house, the energy exchange between the individual and the team, it's very blurred. There needs to be new boundaries, likely out of whack. This person, I can almost bet, values their relationship, and their relationship gives them more of an identity than they've ever kind of identified within themselves. Very much somebody that needs this relationship in order to mirror back to them who it is that they actually are. Because there's an opposition here with Venus, there's a full illumination within this individual on where they have to re-examine this particular relationship dynamic and draw a line, draw a boundary, if you will, in the sand, so that they can get back to identifying who it is that they are outside of this relationship, who it is that they are as a unique individual, and what their own personal wants, needs, and desires would be. This Venus opposition is really illuminating, again, full moon shining a bright light on where it is that they're at a crossroads point right now, recognizing where it is that they don't feel safe, where they don't feel secure, where they're not having happiness and joy and pleasure infiltrate each and every single day, and therefore get back to what it is that they need to do in their own individual life to create safety, security, and stability in their routines, in their relationships, especially the relationship within themselves. Again, 1st house, identity, personality, how they show up in the world. And because this is Libra ruled for them, and this chart is essentially flipped, we will see that there is a realization on where it is that they may need to create new systems, routines, structures, and boundaries in their life, so they're not kind of getting consumed and intertwining themselves, intertwining their identity so greatly with their friendships, with their romantic partnerships. So on to the 2nd house. If your initials are A, G, and you were born in Grand Falls, Newfoundland, this may be your chart. I thought that this was a fitting chart, seeing as we just had an Aries sun with a rising Libra. This is a Libra sun with a rising Virgo. This takes us into the 2nd house. So you'll see that the moon will be taking place at 16 degrees, and this individual has Mars placed at 15 degrees. So this means that the natal Mars will be activated under this full moon, which means that the axis that we're on right now is the 2nd and the 8th. Okay, so what do we know about the 2nd? The 2nd house is about what it is that we have, what it is that we own, what it is that we want to possess. And in order to do that, we have to take a good look at what it is that we have to build, create, give birth to in our lives in order to have the routines or the relationships or the resources, the talents, the skills, the money matters in order to actually build towards our dreams. So the Libran energy ruling over the 2nd house means that this person likely lives in extremes most of the time because, of course, the life lesson with Libran energy is to achieve balance. This individual likely has a hard time accepting the circumstances in their physical realm, and therefore the Libran energy forces them to make peace with their circumstances. Because this is taking place in the 2nd house, there's a full illumination, again, full moon, a full illumination on what needs to die, what needs to end, what we have to close the door on here in the 8th house, where the sun is shining in Aries energy. And a key indicator on what that may be has to do with the identity, with the ego, with where they've been pouring their time, their energy, their attention. Now, you'll know by listening to the forecast and exploring the moon guide that we have this stellium here. We have the sun, we have Jupiter, we have Chiron, making this amazing opportunity to unpack some old pain, some old trauma, some old weight. And in the 8th house, where death is essential, where we literally need to put something to death in order for something to have the space to grow, again, 2nd house topics and themes, this individual is going through a very pivotal choice point. Whether or not they're going to continue to do the same old in the identity, the reputation that they've always had, pouring the same kind of energy and attention to the things that they've always done, or whether they're going to make a dramatic change in their life. And this dramatic change will kind of require them to change their identity, to change their focus, to put a death to who it is that they have been in order to balance the scales and have a new place to grow, to accept the circumstances that their ego has created. And therefore, because they are not happy, you can tell they're not happy with the current circumstances of their routines, their relationships, their money matters. We know this because a full moon is going to illuminate the not so nice thoughts and feelings that we're currently focused on here in the 2nd house. There is a major change that is needed. Now, having the full moon aspect natal Mars here at 15 degrees, the moon's only going to be 1 degree away from this natal Mars. What we get here is 2 different things. This could either inspire this person, motivate this person, really kind of bring in a new energy, a new passion to make these changes, to stabilize their realm, to build something new, or they're going to tap into anger and frustration as the fuel to the fire to make the changes that are needed to the ego, to the avatar, to the identity, in order to create a new reality, a new sense of balance, a new routine, a new foundation, and therefore a new sense of self. So to have the full moon in your 3rd house, of course, in this Libran energy, sitting across from the Aries energy, again, we're going to identify the Capricorn and Cancer energy, means that we're having a shift in our perspective. And I should back up and say that if you have the initials MW and you were born in Urbana, Illinois, and you're a Capricorn with a rising Leo, this is your chart. I do apologize. I should have stated that coming out of the gate. However, this particular person is going to have a totally different full moon in Libra experience because we are focused on the mental plane of the third house and, of course, sharing that axis with the ninth house of beliefs. So anytime there is a full moon, we are being illuminated to a different perspective, a different understanding. We're looking at things with a fresh set of eyes, especially in the realm of the Libran topics and themes, which of course are relationships, peace, harmony, and balance. Now, what we know is that this full illumination is going to reveal some hidden details or a perspective and understanding that we haven't seen as of yet, which changes our perspective and ultimately changes our belief system. Maybe this individual is going through a situation where they're looking back on the pain and the trauma that they've accumulated through their relationship dynamic, and they're starting to unpack that, seeing it from a different light, seeing their ex-partners for the roles in which they have been divinely scripted to play. This, in turn, anytime that you alter your mental plane, you have a new perspective or a new understanding, it essentially shifts the way that you feel about those things. Now, the Sun and Chiron and Jupiter, again, in this Aries energy, is really pushing a lot of that fire energy, that spark, that passion, that desire, to take a good look at self. So this particular person having the third and ninth house be activated by this full moon will likely be really seeing themselves, the role that they played in the pain and trauma story of their past relationships, seeing themselves from a different light, and therefore, I'm going to say lighten the load and release the heartache, maybe even the anger, the grief that one would have looking back on a partnership from a different set of eyes. If your initials are AK and you were born in San Antonio, Texas, this may be your chart if you were born as a Virgo with a rising Cancer. So this is going to illuminate for us the fourth house. And the fourth house, typically speaking, represents the home, the family dynamics. It's where it is that you come from, the foundation of where you come from, and the foundation that you are currently building for yourself and for your family unit to actually go in. So that means that we are with the fourth house and the 10th house. This is the axis of safety, security, stability. Yes, in the fourth house with the home and the family dynamic, but also in the 10th house where career, karma, finances are concerned. We have the very public life that this Aries energy represents. We have the home and the private life that the Libran energy is representing. So of course, we have nothing going on with these other mutable signs, but you'll notice that Jupiter for this person is 1 degree away from the full moon, which is taking place at 16 degrees. So this is a direct aspect with their natal Jupiter. So first, let's just talk about the fact that the full moon in Libra, highlighting within the home and the family dynamic, where things are extreme, where things are chaotic, where we need more stability, where we need more discipline, where we need to build a stronger foundation so that we're not all flying by the seat of our pants. I would also say that this individual is going through a little bit of a rough time in their partnership, in their marriage, recognizing where those particular trials and tribulations are alive and well. But because Jupiter is being aspected here, he's a very positive planet. He's about growth. He's about expansion. I would say that this particular individual is going to be illuminated under the full moon in Libra, where it is that through the struggles, through the hardships, there's a whole lot of learning going on. There's a whole lot of growth. There's a whole lot of tough love life lessons that are manifesting within this home environment, through the partnership, through the marriage, recognizing where it is that things aren't safe and secure and stable. And through leaning into that, really realizing that this is an opportunity to level up. This is an opportunity to tap into the bigger, broader picture, to be as positive and optimistic as possible. Why do we know that? Because that's what Jupiter brings to the game. Now, of course, we are sitting across from this Aries energy. And so there is a want, need, and desire from this individual to kind of break away, to be on their own, to have a little bit more independence. But does that necessarily mean dissolving a relationship or a marriage? Or does that simply mean that they have to work harder on creating boundaries, again, fourth house topic and theme, between the individual, Aries energy, and the relationship, Libran energy? Now, the fact that Jupiter and the Sun and Chiron are all up here, this does scream a huge release, a huge amount of healing, where the ego and the identity is concerned, to create a space, to create those boundaries for this particular individual to have a little bit more independence outside of the home, outside of the relationship, outside of the tasks, the chores, the goals of the home and family unit. Even more than that, because Jupiter is transiting up here, this means that this particular individual is having their Jupiter opposition. This is the halfway mark in a 12-year cycle. So go back 6 years, this individual got into a certain situation, either with their home or their career, where one extreme was emphasized over the other. And now at the 6-year mark, you're at a choice point on whether you're going to stay or whether you're going to go. And because Jupiter is about growth and expansion, this is about how you're going to grow away from the partnership, the home, and the family, or how you're going to grow individually while still being a part of it. What it comes down to is boundaries. And again, under the Libran influence, really manipulating the energy exchange of the relationship dynamics within the home, within the family. If your initials are BB and you were born in Rockford, Illinois, this may be your chart, especially if you were born as a Pisces with a Gemini rising. Okay, so this takes us into the 5th house. And I know you may say, well, I don't know, there's part of it in the 5th house, the other part is in the 6th house. What are we going to do? Where is it going to fall? Well, we know that these little lines, these little indicators are increments of 5. So 5, 10, 15, here's the 16th degree. This is where the moon is going to be at. And one would say this could be the very last degree of the 5th house, or on the cusp between the 5th and the 6th. General rule, if the moon is building to its peak energy, we want to take a look at where the energy of that moon starts. And for this individual, it's in the 5th house. What do we know about the 5th house? Well, it's the heart chakra. It is where we are real and raw and vulnerable with ourselves, where our playful energy, our creative energy, our romantic energy is stored. It is where we tap into the heart space and we get to know our real, true, authentic selves. What makes us special? What is our talent? What do we bring to the world? Very much all caught up in the feels. What we know is that it sits across from the 11th house. The 11th house is hopes, wishes, dreams. and the big vision, the big picture, if you will, that we want to align with, especially if it's heart aligned, that's how we begin to manifest. Now, the 11th house is the collective, so the group, the crowd, if you will. The 5th house, the individual, what the individual wants. A good lesson that comes with the 5th and the 11th axis is, where are we dimming our light in order to fit in? And let me tell you, you're not meant to fit in here. You're meant to stand out. And we have to lean into the 5th house energies in order to figure out how to do that. So the full moon, for all intents and purposes, we're saying is taking place in the 5th house, albeit on the cusp of this particular person's chart, but we are going for the 5th house anyways. What we are going to illuminate is, first of all, where things are out of balance. Likely this person, this individual, spends a lot of time putting their own wants, needs, and desires on the back burner in order to make other people happy. What we know to be true is that this particular person likely has a hard time balancing what they're really passionate about versus what they think they should be passionate about. The 5th house feels, the 11th house thinks. Now, one of the things that I wanted to kind of bring to the realm of attention here is that the minute that we have this full moon peak, we move into the 6th house. Whatever realizations this particular individual is going to be having under the full moon in Libra, especially where they want to achieve peace within themselves, where they want to kind of find safety and security within their emotions, within their dreams, within the connections that they have, one of the biggest factors that they're going to have to realize is that they're going to have to change and restructure and reorganize their day-to-day life, because that's what the 6th house is all about. We'll dive into that in just a second. But where this is taking place right here on the cusp, this means whatever realizations, whatever activations get triggered under this full moon is going to require a total shift in the paradigm that they are used to in their day-to-day life. If your initials are CC and you were born in Cheswick, England, this could be your chart. If you're a Libra with a rising Taurus, this is definitely you. Now, I chose this chart for a couple of reasons. First of all, we are going to examine the 6th house, where this full moon in Libra is taking place. The second reason of interest for this chart, Libra and Taurus, ruled over by Venus, the ruler of this full moon. We have Venus currently in Taurus energy in her place of power. We have the full moon taking place in her other place of power in this Libran energy. So I thought this was going to be a good example. Another reason why I thought this was a good example, because it's taking place at 16 degrees. And 16 degrees is within orb of their natal Mars and their natal Sun. So these two placements are going to be activated by the full moon. Now, having your natal Sun activated by the moon gives you a reset in your body, in your vibration. Every month, we all have the moon making one aspect to our natal Sun that basically renews and revives the seed that gets planted in our sacral plexus, our creativity chakra, if you will. And if we're able to cultivate that energy and really move that energy up the 33 vertebrae of our spine, going through all the chakra centers, we will have a burst in our pineal gland that, of course, releases the chemicals, the dopamine, all of those lovely biological substances that essentially reset the Christos consciousness oil within us. And then that oil then goes down the spine in a very interesting cycle that can illuminate us to new levels of awareness, new levels of enlightenment, new vibrations, new frequencies. This is happening for this person. Even more than that, it is illuminating new passions, new desires for the relationship dynamics to rebalance themselves, because that's what we're doing here in this Libran energy. Now, in the 6th house, this is going to have the most impact through the day-to-day life of this individual. The tasks, the chores, the roles, the responsibilities, how they show up to be of work and service to other people, how they're showing up to be of service to themselves. The main catalyst, I would say, for this individual is where their day-to-day life is a little bit overwhelming, where they're not feeling the support of the people, the partners in their life, where it is that the work maybe is overtaking the amount of time that they have to put into themselves, to that mind, body, soul equation. The Libran energy will illuminate where extremes are taking place in our lives in order for us to kind of get a grip on where it is that we have to bring that in, reel that in, balance those scales. Now, over here, 16 degrees, we're not quite interacting with this natal Chiron placement. Jupiter is, because he's kind of out there on the outskirts of this little stellium going on here, which means that this is a huge amount of healing, a huge amount of internalized expansion on realizing where it is that they overextend themselves in the run of their day, especially where their work is concerned, where that is taking away from the time, the energy that they have to pour into themselves, to better themselves, to take care of their health and wellness. Now, we look over here because Capricorn energy, another cardinal sign. We have Cancer energy, a cardinal sign. They have their natal Saturn at 18 degrees. So we look at anything that's around that 16 degree mark. At 18 degrees, there is a restructuring going on. And what do we know about where this is taking place? It's taking place in the mental plane, right? That 3rd house really shifts our mental plane, our perception, our understanding. And because Mr. Saturn is all about structure and routine and discipline, we come back to where the full moon is illuminating where things are out of whack. And this, in this individual, in their chart, is their day-to-day life. If your initials are EP and you were born in Niagara Falls, Ontario, as a Scorpio with a rising Pisces, this could definitely be your chart. So we want to look at the fact that we are now in the 7th house, the full moon in its place of power here in the 7th house that Libran energy naturally rules over. This is a very intense placement, okay? Because again, dominion, rulership means that we're adding a little bit of extra oomph. Of course, we have this trio over here in the 1st house of self. Now, we explored this with the very first chart, but the signs were flipped. We had Libran energy here in the 1st. We had Aries energy here in the 7th, which is the opposite energies. This is, again, the natural flow of the zodiac wheel. So what we get here is, again, a full illumination in this particular person's life on their relationship dynamics. There's no evading that, okay? There's illumination, likely details and information that have been kind of tucked away from this person's perception. We're going to go back about 1.5 years when this particular Libra moon cycle began in the fall. And there was likely a situation, a climax point, a beginning point of the relationship dynamic that started for this particular person. Well, this particular full moon is going to really emphasize where this particular person has to step away from their own wants, needs, and desires, because there's a little bit too much emphasis here, okay, on the individual self. and where it is that they have to work a little bit harder to meet the people in their lives halfway. This is about balancing the relationship dynamics by understanding that this particular person is a little bit more withdrawn, especially compared to the person in the first chart. Little bit more withdrawn, little bit more private, little bit more individualized from their relationship dynamic compared to the very first chart. And where it is that they have to make more effort to balance the scales so that they're not out on their own, doing their own independent thing in pursuit of their own happiness, their own goals. It's almost, the opposite, where they have to pull in the reins of doing things to the beat of their own drum and working a little bit harder to really strengthen the relationship dynamic. Even more than that, here is Mr. Pluto at 17 degrees, okay? Pluto, and especially as a Scorpio, Pluto is the ruler of this Scorpio individual. And Pluto is about death and destruction. In order for there to be a space for a revival, a renewal, a resurrection to take place. What we're getting down to here is that this is a very intense transformation that will likely spark from the darker areas of the shadow realm. And as this individual is a Scorpio, they are no stranger to the darkness that they feel, especially in relationships. Because Scorpio people, they desire a level of connection, of intimacy, of merging souls that they never seem to be able to actually find here in the physical realm. Mostly because they are private, they are distant, they are detached. They keep a very strong wall and barrier up in between. And because this individual has a couple of other things going on in their chart, not really in the mutable signs, I'm not really getting into a chart interpretation here, but you'll notice that Mercury and the true node, which we talk in depth about in the moon guide, it's within orb of their natal Chiron in a retrograde. So this is a lot of inner dialogue, inner wounding, a lot of privacy, a lot of internalized thoughts and actions that they hold back on expressing outward and sharing with the people in their lives here in the 7th house, which creates furthermore of the distance, the detachment, the disconnect that this Scorpio individual secretly wants so freaking badly. So what they're going to learn, and likely the hard way, is where they have to get out of their own way, where they have to make more of an effort to kind of slow their roll, if you will, on their own individual pursuit of happiness and be a little bit more open and considerate to the happiness, to the goals, to the dreams, to the vision of what this partnership is asking for, honestly, for cooperation, for compromise, for negotiation on where it is that this individual needs to step out of their individuality and step into the role of actually being a good partner. If your initials are MS and you were born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, as a Scorpio with a rising Aquarius, this may be your chart. So this individual has the full moon in Libra taking place in the 8th house of death, rebirth, resurrection, where true transformation takes place. And as a Scorpio, the 8th house is their placement of power. So the 8th house sits across from the 2nd house. We've already identified in previous examples that the 2nd house and the 8th house share the axis of give and take, of death and rebirth, of destruction and creation. We have to end things, put a death to something in the 8th house in order to have a space to create something new in the 2nd house. And because we are talking about Libran energy, partnerships, relationships, there is likely some shadow realm thoughts and feelings, pains and traumas that this particular person has where relationships are concerned. as a Scorpio. This isn't surprising, okay? So hopefully we're taking some notes here. We are going to look at the fact that Jupiter, the Sun, Chiron in this Aries energy in the second house is asking for a good release of the healing, of the trauma that has basically been accumulated through the relationship dynamics of this particular individual's chart and what this has meant in building their identity. So especially where Scorpio is concerned, the whole goal for Scorpio is intimacy and desire and passion and connection. But when Scorpio individuals get hurt and have a sense of pain and trauma in their relationships because they kind of engulf themselves in their relationship dynamics, they essentially lose who it is that they are in relationships. And when those relationships end, they have no clue who it is that they are. They have to rebuild themselves. There is a death of self that takes place through relationships. And through that, a re-identification, a re-identity, rebranding needs to be built, needs to be created in their life. Essentially, everything is destroyed. They literally need to start over. So because we're halfway in this Libran energy cycle, again, dating back to about a year and a half ago, it is likely and highly probable that this particular individual about a year and a half ago had a major change take place in their relationship dynamics that further pushed them away from the want, need, and desire to connect and have a very intimate merging of souls, if you will, with another individual. Again, tapping into the opposite, which is the Aries energy of independence, of that solo adventure, of the identity of lone wolf, which is the complete opposite of the partnership dynamic that the Libran energy wants us to have. So this particular individual under the full moon in Libra is likely going to examine the heaviness, the weight, the pain, the trauma that they associate with relationships, past, present, and future. And because of that, reshape what it is that they want to do as far as, I'm going to say, minimizing the independent role that they took on due to the pain and trauma, the outcasting of their love, if you will, and build a new perspective, a new want, need, and desire to close the door on this lone wolf chapter and to open the door to romance, to love, to let new people actually get close to them. If your initials are TR and you were born in Montreal, Quebec, as a Cancer with a rising Sagittarius, this may be your chart. So of course, in this example, we are examining the 9th house. The 9th house and the 3rd house. Again, information and belief. How the ever-changing circumstances of our day-to-day lives impact our overall belief, our optimism, our dreams, our goals. So this particular individual has the full moon taking place right here in their chart. So we are actually out of orb. We're not going to factor in Mr. Uranus at all. We are going to come over here and realize this is taking place very close to the cusp, again, right here versus right here. But we're still very much in the 9th house energies. Now, the 9th house is an ending point, bringing something full circle, being able to see the big picture on why certain things had to happen in our day-to-day life, again, 3rd house, in order to shape our overall perspective, our beliefs, our outlook, 9th house. So because this is a full moon in Libra, this has a lot to do with how the relationship dynamic has essentially changed this person's belief. And because the Aries energy over here is pushing for our own individual wants, our own needs, our own desires, this particular individual had a very strong belief system until this person entered into a relationship dynamic that, of course, opened up the mind, likely through religious or spiritual beliefs that not necessarily push them on this individual, just open them up and expose this individual to new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing the world. And therefore, the full moon is illuminating where it is that now this person has to balance their own belief system with the belief system of the people that they share time and space with. So we want to take a look at the fact that Cancer energy, again, mutable sign. Capricorn energy, again, mutable sign. We do have some placements over here in this mutable sign as well, but nothing at a 16 degree. Typically speaking, we stick within 3 to 5 degrees within orb to say that something is being aspected. But what we know kind of coming into this energy is that this particular person is really being challenged in their belief system right now because it doesn't feel like they're on the same page with their partner. And of course, whatever it is that is consuming their mental plane as far as their unique perspective goes, their unique belief system goes, is definitely having an impact not only on the partnership, but as we see here, we'll be moving into the opposition of the 4th house. And so this means that there is some family disruptions, families dysfunctions going on because of the partnership, because of realizing where the belief system isn't in alignment. Because for this individual, everything is changing. Perspectives are changing. Information is changing. Education opportunities are changing. Everything in the mental plane, new information and details popping up out of nowhere, is changing the belief system that they thought they had, and very different, again, polarizing, dualistic in nature, Libran energy with the scales unbalanced, with their partner, within the time, energy, and space being shared, not only within the relationship, but with the home dynamic that this energy will be kind of putting in the shadow, if you will. So the sun eventually will be moving into the 10th house of career opportunities, of finances, of new roles and responsibilities, putting the 4th house of home and family in the dark. Right? So there is illumination right now on education for this individual, for leveling up in career, and likely very, very different from the objectives, from the goals, from the path, from the perspective of the partnership, because we're seeing the difference in opinions, difference in beliefs between this 3rd house and this 9th house. If your initials are SM and you were born in Clydebank, Scotland, as a Gemini with a rising Scorpio, this could be your chart. So this particular individual is having the full moon illuminate their 10th house of career, of roles and responsibilities, of karma, and of finances. Finances are a big deal for Libras. Especially under Libra dominant placements, we start to see where it is that our finances are kind of out of whack. And we understand, because the 10th house sits across from the 4th house, that there is a challenge for attention, undivided attention between the career, 10th house, and the home and the family, the 4th house. So the full moon in Libran energy is likely going to illuminate for this individual where it is that they've been going really, really hard at trying to reach their career goals, but where their home and family environment has likely suffered because of it. We have to take into consideration that this particular individual has just had their Chiron return. And so there's already an ego crisis going on. And it wouldn't surprise me at this particular point if there was a particular, I'm going to say, disruption in their relationship dynamic. I say that because if you look at Cancer and Capricorn energies, we do that again because these are the cardinal signs. We see that Venus is in at 14 degrees in the 8th house of death, rebirth, resurrection. Now, Cancer energy is about nurturing the home and the family dynamic, but also nurturing oneself. And we learn a tough love life lesson in Cancer energy where it is that we overextend ourselves to take care of other people as an unconscious distraction to keep us from taking care of ourselves. Venus, being the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, money, and the ruler of this full moon, she is being activated to learn where it is that she has to create routines and a relationship with taking care of herself. The 8th house is asking to put a death to something in order to build something better in its place. And we know because of Capricorn energy that this is a boss up, that we need to think of our long-term goals, our long-term foundations, and that we have to nurture ourselves, Cancer energy, back to a place of stability. We can tell that because the full moon in Libra is going to illuminate where things aren't stable. And it is likely not stable in this particular individual's home life. Why? Because most of the focus for the last year and a half has been on their career. So we definitely have a lot of energies taking place, not even to mention, and I know this is a little bit off topic, but that's what I do. You should know me by now. This is a very interesting aspect taking place. This is Uranus in Taurus energy, making a direct aspect with this individual's Saturn, okay, in the 6th house. There is a spontaneous, random event taking place in this particular person's life that is essentially destabilizing the structures, the foundations that were already built, likely due to taking care of other people here in this home environment, and where this individual needs to be more independent in taking care of themselves and rebalancing the scales now that they have achieved certain goals, certain dreams in their career, and where it is that they have to think more long-term, Capricorn energy, into what it is that they want for their home and their family dynamic, and where it is that they have to take action and initiation, Aries energy, in order to rebuild, restructure, reorganize the day-to-day life where the home and the career are concerned. If your initials are TA and you were born in North Bay Shore, New York, as a Gemini with a rising Scorpio, this could be your chart. So this brings us up into the 11th house. So we know that the 11th house is about connections, friendships, network. It's also about hopes, wishes, dreams, the big picture, the big vision, if you will, on where it is that we want to go. We know it sits across from the 5th house of the heart space, the heart chakra, where an emotion of excitement, of passion, a desire has to lead us to this vision that we're currently conjuring up. The full moon in Libra, obviously very focused on where we're living in extremes, where we're out of focus, out of balance, especially where our partnerships are concerned, kind of lands us in this vicinity of where the moon is going to be interacting with this person's natal Pluto in a retrograde. So this is very important. The reason being is that Pluto in a retrograde means that this energy, this darkness, this pain is internalized. And it is through the connections with other people and through the evolution of the heart chakra that this particular individual can actually open themselves up to partnerships once again. Now, it is likely that this individual had a hard time even maintaining relationships with friends because their inner paranoia, the inner darkness, the fear, the doubts, the insecurities of not being good enough, of not fitting in because of their Pluto in a retrograde, prevent them from putting themselves out there in the ways that internally they wish that they could do. We want to take a look at the fact that yes, they do have some Cancer aspects, but it's at 8 degrees. So it's not really within orb, if you will, of this particular full moon event. We know that over here, the Sun, Chiron, and Jupiter in this Aries energy is really doing a lot of healing as far as this identity is concerned, and the emotions, the heartache that this particular person has been holding in their 5th house, their heart chakra. This particular individual, because of the Libran placement over here in the 11th house, tends to sacrifice their identity, their own wants, needs, and desires in order to fit in. And even when they seem like they're fitting in, they're not really fitting in because their natal Pluto here is constantly telling them that they don't fit in, that nobody likes them, that they're not good enough, that they're never going to be good enough, that they're never going to have friendships, they're never going to have relationships. That is the ego at play. We really want to take a good look at where this individual is having some other activations, which is right here. This is Mercury in the true node with Mars, okay? Now, this is indicative that there is a lot of mental health issues, especially where anger and frustration get repressed, get held in, and essentially have the potential to create a lot of health issues here in the 6th house. Because these particular pop-offs are taking place, there is likely going to be a rebalancing, again, Libran topic and theme, of the heart space, 5th house, head space, Mercury, and where it is this particular person needs to abandon their paranoia and issues, their insecurities, their doubts, their fears, to put themselves out there, again, in the community with like-minded people, like-minded individuals, in order for them to see that anything is possible, that they're able to overcome this very hard placement of wanting to just be liked and accepted and validated by the outside world. This individual needs to lean all the way in to really just listening to that heart space, to letting that heart space lead, to letting that heart space lead them on a path of excitement, of passion, of desire, on what makes them individually unique, on their talents and their skills, and how they can tap into strengthening these qualities and characteristics in order to better the collective, better the people around them, better the environment, the network, the community that they choose to involve themselves with. If you have the initials ND and you were born in Montreal, Quebec, as a Gemini with a rising Scorpio, this could be your chart. Another Gemini rising Scorpio, but very different in a lot of ways. Okay, so this is going to wrap things up because this individual is having the full moon in Libra in the 12th house. The 12th house is endings, closures, our soul self, our intuition, the hidden realm of our emotions, the unconscious part of ourselves, and where it is that we have to provide an ending and a closure to some certain soul contracts before we can actually move on. So what we know, because this is a full moon in Libra, there's likely some not so nice thoughts and feelings coming up for this particular person because the 12th house kind of uncovers that hidden realm of darkness, that shadow realm. We know that the 12th house sits across from the 6th house. The 6th house is physical and mental health and wellness, while the 12th house is emotional and spiritual in nature. we will see that this particular individual just had their Jupiter return. So this is a brand new 12-year cycle for this individual. And Jupiter, the Sun, and Chiron are all still within orb of this natal Jupiter placement here in the 6th house. What I would kind of venture to say is that the day-to-day life and routine of this individual that began about a year and a half ago, finally getting settled in, finally being a little bit more disciplined and structured, taking care of one's mental health, physical health, emotional and spiritual health. However, kind of bored. There's kind of a little bit of stagnancy here. We're at a crossroads point, likely because the partnership, again, Libran energy, is not as supportive in this 6th house of day-to-day tasks, of chores, of health and wellness as this particular individual would like. This individual just went through a huge identity crisis, a huge amount of growth, a huge amount of transformation. And because this is kind of about the self, the individual, there's likely some darkness, likely some extremes coming up in this particular individual's relationship dynamics, from dust that was swept underneath the rug, that conversations that weren't fully had. Why? Because we like to stay in the shallow end in Libran energy. We can't stay in the shallow end in the 12th house. It is deep as you get. So there is a good indication that the scales that need to be balanced in this individual's life is by going to the depths of the darkness and unearthing, uncovering a lot of unconscious programming that's making it very hard for this individual to create a new system, routine, and structure in their life, to remove the blockages of people pleasing and doing things for other people in order to put themselves at the top of the list. Again, Aries energy, the individual. This particular person has gone through their own individual awakening just a couple of years ago, and therefore have totally reconstructed their day-to-day life and their environment to support themselves, now realizing that they reached a certain point of stability in what it is that they've created. But what's getting left behind is this relationship, is this partnership dynamic that definitely needs a little bit more work. Now, they also have Venus, their Venus return, and Venus aspecting their natal Mercury here in the 7th house that Libran energy naturally rules over. So what we can take from this is that, first of all, there's a total change of heart, total change of values of what's important to this individual, especially where relationships are concerned. We are seeing a open-hearted discussion, Mercury again, of the new changes, the new alterations that they want to be making to themselves, to their day-to-day life, and how they are asking for encouragement and support from their partner. Again, a lot of darkness, a lot of dark topics, a lot of dark themes. Things really just don't feel good. Now take a look here. Nothing in their Capricorn energy, but over here, they have their true node at 20 degrees, which lands within orb of the 16 degrees of this full moon popping off here in the 12th house. This is in the 9th house. The 9th house is the bigger, broader picture of beliefs. The Cancer energy is about nurturing oneself versus nurturing other people. The true node or north node in a person's chart is a crossroads point of change. And because the change is being illuminated here between what took place a year and a half ago to this individual, for them to have to recreate their day-to-day life, it means that they've been putting themselves first and foremost for a while now, and that the partnership has taken a back seat due to the emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical wants, needs, and desires of this particular individual. It is time to reevaluate the relationship dynamic, to have those conversations. Again, Mercury here, open-hearted conversations on what they want to build, what they want to create now that this individual has felt safe enough or stable enough in their new environment, in their new day-to-day life. Now it's time to involve the partnership back into things again. And keep in mind, we will be moving into eclipse season here very shortly, and that will be illuminating the Scorpio energy. So whatever is dying off, whatever is coming to an end, whatever is being resolved here in the 12th house for this individual, there is a rebirth coming in eclipse season. So guys, I know that was a lot of information, but hopefully it acted as a little bit of a guide, of an assistant, if you will, to kind of explore your own chart, to examine where the full moon will be illuminating for you, where some extremes are, where some chaos is, where some extra effort is needed in your lives, especially to rebalance the scales within your relationship dynamics. And of course, I always want to encourage you to start with the relationship with yourself first and foremost. I hope this was helpful. Drop me a comment in the space below. Let me know if it helped or harmed you. If you have any questions, drop those below as well. I hope you have a beautiful full moon in Libra, and we'll talk to you in the next class.